So what we're going to be doing today is experimenting with some of the really cool charts that you can put into your spreadsheet. So this is actually the finished product that we're going to be creating today. We're going to do a column chart, a pie chart, a combo chart, and on the main spreadsheet we're going to do a bar chart. And you can see that we actually have two sets of data here, and these are called sparklines. So basically they show activity for a single element. So for example, this one says there was a 22% growth, so this line is showing that 22% growth visually. I really don't care much for the sparklines, but some people do like it because many people are visual. So if you go into a meeting, as much as they like seeing the percentage, it helps them also to see it turned into something visual that makes sense to them. So the first thing I'm going to do, they want us to create a clustered column chart, and this one's really quite useful. And then later we're going to make some changes to it. One of the features of Excel is its ability to look at information and try to create the best chart for you. So if I click on cell A5 and I hold the mouse key down and drag it all the way through cell D12, so that's D12 right there, and that's A5. Now when I say drag it, if I click on cell A5, do you see the white cross and how my mouse is right in the center of the cell? I'm then just going to drag, holding the left mouse button down, until I've selected all this text, which is very different from the fill handle. So if I accidentally did the fill handle, I don't even know if it'll let me do it. Let's find out. Nope. And then I released it, I would blank out all those cells. Of course, I can undo it, right? I can click the arrow up here, which is really a good thing. Or I can do Control Z on the keyboard. I'm looking for, whenever I want to select stuff, I want the white cross. And then I click and hold the left mouse button, and I'll just drag it through to D12. And that's letter B on page 553. So there's a feature here called Quick Analysis. Everybody see yours down at the corner there? If I click that, it shows me different formatting I can do, and I also can select charts. And there's a couple of different charts that we can select, and then I'm going to click Charts. It's hard to see the picture on page 552, but the one we're doing is the clustered column. Clustered column. And when it first opens up, it kind of lays right over the material we have here. That's okay. If I go over to, and notice it automatically puts me on the Design tab, and the chart is currently highlighted. You can tell when it's highlighted because it'll have these circles all the way around it. I'm going to click Move Chart, and then I'm going to click New Sheet. And the name I want to put is Clustered Column. If I click OK, you can see it automatically creates a new sheet for me called Clustered Column. So then I can go back to the Outlook chart, and I think this time I'm going to add a bar chart. So this is a little bit tricky because This time, if I click on cell A5, I'm actually going to select cells A5 through A12, and then it says I want to select D5 through D12. And in order to be able to do that, this is called a non-contiguous selection, which means there's nothing in between the two selections. Well, I should say there is data between the two selections. So I'm going to hold down the Control key, and starting with D5, I'll click and hold the left mouse and drag the mouse down until I have both columns selected. Then I'm going to go to the Insert tab, and that's step B. It just so happens to show me all of my charts, but sometimes you'll see a little dropout box that says charts. If I select this group first and then hold the Control key down while I'm selecting that second column, I should say, it'll select both. The trick is the Control key. So if I select, it wants us to do A5 through B12, which is the first two columns, and then hold down the Control and do D5 through D12. And if we cruise over to Insert, Column or Bar Chart, and we go to Clustered Bar, now we see both types. Now they have you change this after the fact, but you can select Stacked Bar right here if you want. This particular one, we're actually going to drag this one. Now the trick with dragging a chart is making sure you select the correct space. So I don't want to select an element like the chart title when I drag, because if I do that, I'll end up changing the size or moving the chart title around. So I'm going to do Control Z to undo that. I'm going to click in the white space here. And if I do that, then I can drag the chart and bring it below our actual data. And now's a good time to click Save. So I'm going to click Save really quick. So if I click on the Format tab while I have my chart selected, I can go over here. They want us to type in 3.6 inches tall, and I press Enter. And then it should be 5.3 inches wide, and I press Enter. And also you can grab a circle on the corner. You see the two arrows diagonally facing away? If I click and hold, I can actually make this chart as large or small as I want. And when you use the corner, you are changing both the vertical and the horizontal simultaneously. On the other hand, if I just click the center, I'm only changing the horizontal axis. And if I click this one, I'm only changing the vertical. Actually, I should say this is the horizontal. So right now it just says chart title. That's okay. We're going to come back and fix that. For the pie chart, we're going to select range A6 through A12. And we will then hold down the Control key and do D6 through D12. And we'll go to the Insert tab up at the top. And this time, we're going to insert a 2D pie chart. And just like before, it automatically takes us back to the Design tab. So we're going to move the chart to a new sheet. That'll be called Pie Chart. And I'll click OK. And it's now moved the pie chart to its own sheet. Now the next chart that we're going to create is called a combo chart. So what I'm going to do here is select the range A5 through A12. Then I'll hold down the Control key and do D5 through E12. So I'm holding the Control key down when I select this second group of numbers. And I'll cruise over to the Insert tab, and I want to insert a combo chart. So you can hover over these different possible chart types, and finally you should find one that says combo chart. I'm going to click that little tiny drop down triangle, and page 557 step C says select a clustered column line on secondary axis. Clustered column line on secondary axis. So I will click that option. It'll immediately create the chart. If you accidentally don't select at least 3 columns, so this one becomes the labels. These two become the data points. Does that make sense? So now I'm ready to move the chart again. And I'll do new sheet, combo chart. Now, we are calling these their chart names, but in reality, if you were making a report for a business on job growth, for example, you probably would call this something much more accurate. And we're going to change the titles of the charts, but we don't change the tabs. But in reality, we wouldn't call this combo chart, right? Because as a preview, you wouldn't know what was in the chart. You would just know it's going to combine 2 types of data. But in reality, you'd kind of want to know what's in there. So I'm going to click OK, and it throws that sheet into a brand new chart. Tab, I should say, here on the bottom. So we're going to fast forward to page 569. I'm going to press save again, because you know how these computers are. They'll wait till you get a whole bunch of work done, then they'll lock up. Pretty much any computer can behave that way. We're going to do some formatting and editing. So it wants us to go to the combo chart. And if I click chart title one time, and I click up in the formula bar, I'm going to type in a new name, number of new computer-related jobs by 2020. And if I press enter, you'll see it automatically changes the chart title for me. And on page 570, letter C, if I go back to the Home tab, can you tell that title element is still selected. You see the blue dots around the corners? That's how you know it's still selected. Now I can change, using the Home tab, I can make it bold. And to me, that's really too small for a title. So I can change that to 18 and make it a little bit larger. You could go 20, but I think 18 is sufficient. Next, I'm going to cruise over to the pie chart. And by default, chart title's not highlighted, is it? Selected. So I'm going to click it once. And I'm going to call this one New Computer Related Jobs by 2020. And press enter. I'm still on the Home tab. So I'm just going to go ahead and click bold. And I'm going to make that title a little bit larger. I'll change it to 18. And I might as well click save while I'm here. I'm going to go to the Outlook tab. We can do some pretty neat things to this chart down here. I just want to make sure I'm on the right one here. Before I do this one, I am going to change the cluster column. So I'm going to click the chart title and change this to number of computer related jobs. And this one says 2010 and 2020 because we actually do have both years showing. So blue represents 2010 and the orange represents 2020. I'll press enter. I'm going to make this one bold as well. And I'm going to increase the size to 18. And I might as well press save again. Back on the Outlook tab, we will go to the chart title. And we're going to change this to projected number of jobs by 2020. And I'll press enter. Can you see why this one would be chosen to be on the main data sheet? Because it really quickly shows us two things, doesn't it? One, how many jobs there are currently, and two, how many jobs are expected. I'm going to click here where this red A is and click the drop down box. And they say to choose dark blue in the standard colors. Right here. So this bar on the bottom is standard colors. The cool thing is if you run the mouse over these different colors, it'll show you a preview of what it's going to look like. And I'm going to use dark blue. And I don't remember if I turned bold on. It doesn't look like it. So I'm going to click B for bold. Shortcut is Control B on the keyboard if you like shortcuts. We're going to make some changes here. So if we click the plus for chart elements, we're going to change a few things. We're going to turn on axis titles. And if we click the arrow here, Actually, probably what would be easier, I'll just leave it unselected and I'll click the arrow for Axis Titles. And I'll click the primary vertical was the one they wanted to use. So right now, Axis Titles is selected. So if I click on that once, the menu will go away. And I can go up here and I can change that to Job Titles. Horizontal axis, I do like what they do here on the horizontal axis. If I double click on the horizontal axis, I can actually change the display units. Notice it says none right now. I can change this to thousands. And you can see immediately the change it makes here. So this is a much better display, right? The numbers are much more clear. So if I turn that back off, right, that's all the numbers are kind of getting jumbled. So I can turn that back on. And I'm going to save again. If we cruise back over to the pie chart, we can do a couple different things with this chart. Let's see if it shows us the chart elements. Yep. So if I click the plus here, let's try and turn on the data labels. And you can see the numbers. But we really don't want the numbers. Whenever you see a pie chart, it's usually in percentages, right? Everybody with me so far? You got the format chart area up here. And if I click the label, whoops, do that again. Click the label. Let's check label options. So right now it has value selected. It's hard to see on my computer. If I click percentage and then unclick value, now it shows the percentage on the chart. And again, they have us change. Before I move here to change the font size, let's check out label position. Let's see if right now it's on best fit. I'm going to experiment with these. There's the center position. We can do inside end, outside, or best fit. So you can experiment with these and put it the way you like it. For right now, I'll just leave it as best fit, but to me it looks best with it centered. Some people like to have the percentages outside because it's easier to read. So it's what you prefer, really. But for right this minute, I'm just going to leave it as best fit. Then I'll cruise over to home, and we're going to increase the size of the data labels. It says to go to 18. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I guess that's reasonable. In the picture, it shows them more in the center. They put a fill in the background, and I'm not a big fan of that at all, but I want to show it to you just so you can see it. They say point. This one's a little bit tricky. Point to the chart area, the white space in the chart, and double click when you see the chart area screen tip. So here we can actually do fill and line, and then fill. And they want us to select picture or texture fill. So the default that comes up right away is this kind of, I don't know what it is. It's like a wallpaper. There's a small drop-down box. I don't know if everybody can see that on mine. It's over here. You can see like an icon of a photo. if you click that drop down, you can select other patterns, and the one they want us to select is the blue tissue paper. So I can select blue tissue paper. We're going to do a couple of other changes. We're going to click the 26%, specifically the 26% accent 2 slice. And you have to make sure that it's the only one selected. So by default, the whole chart gets selected. So you click it once and then you click it a second time. It's not really a double click. It's clicking it once, waiting, and then clicking it twice. So if I don't have that slice selected, I can click it and you see the whole chart is selected, the whole pie chart, and then click it again to select only that piece. They make a couple of changes here, and you can experiment with these too if you want. It says to change it to solid fill, and then we have to click the color arrow. So we're basically going to be able to select the color we want, and we're going to go with dark red. I'm going to click dark red, and it does show the change. Then we have to click the series option icon in the format data point. So we have to click the series option, and I'm going to increase the point explosion by 5%. You'll see the pie wedge kind of move outward. And if you did 10%, it becomes much more pronounced. So you can experiment with that setting. And of course, the point here is to show that this one's a significant growth factor. And then we go to the 6%. Again, I have to click it once and then twice to make sure only the 6% is highlighted. And I'm going to go to the fill and do solid. And the color they want us to select is the orange accent 2. So that's going to be in the theme colors. Orange accent 2. Now their logic to changing that is to make it easier to read. And yet we made this one red. So you can, if you want, go and change that one. And there's a couple of options, or we could do gold or whatever. Looks like we already have a gold. We can do a lighter green, for example, which makes it much easier to read. So just looking at our different charts here, we've made quite a few changes. Everybody see the 3 ellipses here? That tells me that I have more tabs than I can display. And there is arrows here that you can use to go back and forth between all of these different tabs. Okay, we're going to start on the Outlook sheet. And we're going to make a few changes to this particular chart. So I'm going to click on Design. And once I do Design, there are many chart styles that you can select. And just by hovering the mouse over these different charts, you can get an idea of all the different styles. And of course, there's a drop down, so there's a few more here I can look at as well. And they select style 2, and I can see why. For one thing, the font changes. So if you're not able to read really well, if you look at CIS managers, the third line there on the left, and then we go to the second chart, it's much easier to read. So I'm going to click style 2, This chart says projected number of jobs by 2020. So this one's accurate. We're going to leave this one as it is. I'm going to click Save. And then I'm going to go to, this one was supposed to be called column chart. So I didn't name mine correctly. I can easily change it though with a right click and then rename. And I can just type in column chart and press enter. And we can make some changes to this one. I'm going to hide that format. They want us to go to filters, chart filters. And there's a couple of them that we're going to get rid of. And notice if I hover the mouse, it'll actually show me by highlighting which one I'm going to get rid of. I understand why they want to get rid of number of new jobs, which they decide to do. And they're really only doing this to show you what you can do. But if we're talking about computer-related jobs, it wouldn't make sense to do step C on page 581. But you can, if you want, take an individual chart element like programmers, for example, and just by deselecting it, it'll actually remove that. And then they want us to do CIS managers. And I'll select that. And then, of course, at the bottom, you have to click apply. So it's a very different chart now. It doesn't show the number of new jobs. And we got rid of 2 positions. But we can see the number of new jobs right here. We know it's going to be over 600,000. So we didn't really need that other gray new jobs created area. Okay. So I'm going to click Save. And I'm going to go back to the Outlook chart. And I think what I will do is create a new column. So it says to click, specifically I think it says D6. It really doesn't matter where you click. We want to insert, I notice I've got insert row. Let's see if I click this drop down, what do I get? I want to insert a new column. So I'm on the Home tab. Just make sure you're on the Home tab. And you click anywhere in the D column. And then here in the Cells group, I'll click that drop down for Insert. And I'm going to insert an all new column, which becomes the new D column. And now I'm going to go to Insert. On the Insert tab, you are seeing sparklines. And right now I'm still in D6. So I'm going to click the sparklines. And I can move this box over a little bit if I need to. It's asking me for the data range. I want to select range B6 through C12. Then I'm going to press the Tab key. And we have to tell it where we want to put the sparkline. So I need to select the range D6 through D12. And remember, whenever we're selecting, we want to make sure that the white cross is showing up. And I always go to the center of the cell before I click and hold the left mouse button and start dragging it down. So I've now got the data range of B6 through B12, which is all this good stuff here. and then the location where it's going to end up, D6 through D12. And you might make a mistake and go, oops, I really messed up now. All you have to do is click and hold the left mouse button and select that area. Maybe you messed up on this part. Well, we can just click back up here and reselect it again. So you pretty much can do it as many times as you need to get it right. If I say, oops, I definitely got the wrong area, I can go back over here, wait till I see that white cross, click and hold on the B6 cell, and I'm going to drag down and over until I have B6 through C12. And then I'll click OK. So initially, these sparklines, not very impressive, right? Because they're showing changes, but they all look the same. So in order to get them to show changes for each line, we've got to make a couple of changes here. Okay, so the first thing they want us to do, and notice I have selected D6 through 12s. That way I'm making a change to all of the sparklines at once instead of one at a time. I'm going to select them all. I wait till I see that white cross, not the fill handle. So if you do the fill handle, then it won't work at all. So see the white cross there, right in the center. Click and hold the left mouse key and drag down. And then I can go, they want us to go to markers, select sparkline style dark number 6. We've changed the color of the markers at the end and the beginning. And we can also do sparkline colors, and there's a lot of different colors you can select. According to them in the style group, they want us to select red in the standard. So I'll select red. Makes it definitely more pronounced. Click axis in the group. So here's the group and here's axis. And this is the part that's going to make them independent of each other. And we want to click same for all sparklines in the vertical axis. Minimum value, and then also here in the maximum value. That does look correct. So now these sparklines are showing changes individually. Okay, so once we've done that, the sheet is ready to submit.